Shalom, shalom, Israel. If everybody can hear me, can I get a one in the chat? If y'all can hear me, all right. All right. All right. The water. All right. The water. The water. All right. Shalom, Israel. We are the Israelite School of Universal Practical Knowledge, started out at 1 West 125th Street, Harlem, New York, under Commanding General Yohana. We are not affiliated with any other Israelite group or any Christian organization. Tonight is the Virginia history class. I want to say Shalom Yahweh Shem Shabbat Thumb to the brothers. Shalom Yahweh Shema Alathun by Shem Yahweh Shai to the sisters. All right. Let's see who we got in the building so far. Well, roll call real quick. Got Officer Yagadar in the building. Shalom, brother. All right. Got my rib in the building. Shalom. Got Officer Yagadar's rib in the building. Shalom, sis. We got brother Stephen Baldwin in the building. Shalom, brother. What's going on? All right. All right. So we are going to get into some history tonight. Obviously, the class, if y'all can tell by the title, is Make Israelites Great Again. And that is definitely, okay, Shalom, sis. I believe it's Aisha, I believe is how you pronounce that. Shalom, sis. All right. So we're going to get into, as y'all can tell by the title, Make Israelites Great Again. That is definitely a reference to um, what Donald Trump, uh, what he used as his political slogan, "Make America Great Again." And if any of y'all remember, back in 2016, a lot of the opposition to that, you could easily ask, okay, you want to make America great again. When exactly was America great, right? Given America's horrible history, um, 400 years of slavery followed by at least 400 years of our enslavement followed by another 100 years uh, uh, sanctioned oppression. Uh, God, sister, I believe Officer Yagadar is talking to you right now. He said that is a T-shirt and a hat. Hint, hint. Damn right, God. But we all know that was a thing, and it was easy to just be like, well, when exactly when that was that, right? Because the reality is there was a time um, that America was great, depending on who you're speaking about, right? So for our oppressor, for Esau, there was a time when this country was probably greater for them than maybe it is now, right? There was a time, um, and there's definitely a time for Israel when we were in a greater place collectively. All right. So given that idea, who has some thoughts on when maybe we were in a greater place, even given our history in this wicked kingdom? When were we probably in a greater place, a better place collectively than we are now? Who has any thoughts on that? Who can give me some perspective on maybe there was a time that we were in a greater place as a people? Anybody got any perspective on that? When could that have been? All right. Let's see. Sister I says segregation. All right. That is absolutely true. That is absolutely true. That's not the only answer, but that is a true answer. Who else got something? Yeah. Okay. Obviously, Yagadar's really said before MLK wanted us to have a dream. Absolutely. She's absolutely right. Get her sister a hand as well. Sister I said Black Wall Street. Okay. Obviously, Yagadar summed it up perfectly. Get that brother a hand. Right after slavery up until MLK. That was the greatest time that we had in this country's history. Now, why is that? Who can give me some perspective on why? There's a bunch of different answers, but what's some examples of how we were greater then and how that was our time? That was the best era that we had in this country. What was different back then? We know we were there was segregation, right? We know we weren't following MLK, Black Wall Street. We have that time period. What are some things that made that time period greater than it is now? All right. Yagadara's rib said because we united as one. Okay. I will definitely take that. That is a Tawab answer. All right. Sister I said First John 5:3 on full effect. Okay, you had to explain that one. I'm gonna make sure I'm with you. You had to explain that one, sis. All right. Officer Yagadar says the American law forced us to deal with each other. We were separated from our enemies. He is exactly right. Give him a hand. Um, that is exactly it. We were in a situation where, and as the sister said, we were united as one. That's true. The sad part is we were forced to be that way, and as history shows us, um, that in large part was why we were united as one because we were forced to be that way, right? And that's something that we should not have to be forced to do. That's something we should want to do. That's something that the Most High tells us to do. The Most High tells us to gather yourselves together, O nation not desired. That is Zephaniah 2:1. That's why we should do it. Not because the oppressor forces us to do it, but because we have such love for our people um, and such love for our brothers and sisters that we want to be together. All right. Uh, Triple call support in the building. Shalom, brother. All right. Let's see. Shagdaz River said, we were forced to spend money with us only. Black schools taught by us live together. Absolutely. She's absolutely right. Let's see. Sister I said, we had brotherhood and sisterhood. We cared about family and supported each other. Okay, that's true. I would so we cared about each other, supported each other. We were forced to do so, but what we weren't doing, and that we always have to remember this, we weren't following the law, statutes, and commandments even then. We were closer to how we're supposed to be as far as dealing with each other, as far as being united, as far as coming together. We were closer then than we are now. No thanks to, as the sister said, MLK. No thanks to integration. No thanks to the Christian church. But we were still not following the law, statutes, and commandments. If we were collectively, then we would not be in the situation that we're in today. Okay. So I wouldn't necessarily, you're correct as far as us supporting each other and our family and all that. But we still weren't following the law. So I would not necessarily use that precept in this aspect of the discussion. All right. Um, but yeah, everybody good to wild answer, to wild answer. So this is what's also interesting. So a little bit of backstory over the weekend. Um, the brothers, we found ourselves at the Virginia Black History Museum in downtown Richmond. Anybody who's familiar with that, put a one in the chat. If you're not, just put a two. Um, I had never been there before. All right. I don't think any of us had been there before. Great place with a wealth of knowledge, specifically, obviously to Virginia. What is also interesting, and obviously Yagadar and I were speaking about this. It's interesting. We obviously want to know. It's so important to know our history. It's so important to know the things that our people, Israelites, have gone through, um, and where we were, and to make sure that we get to to where we want to be, to make sure we're following the law, statutes, and commandments, so that we don't have these curses on us. So we can break that break those curses, get the Most High back on our side, so on and so forth. We have to be aware of what um, has happened to us as a people, right? What's interesting though is you always have to be very cautious about the information that's given. One of the things that Officer Yagada and I were talking about is that the information, the history is good. The history is solid. It lets you know what happened. What you have to be cautious about is the narrative that's added to it, right? It's a fact, it's a true statement that MLK and the quote unquote civil rights movement led to integration. That is a true statement. Now, whether it's a good thing or a bad thing, that's what you have to be cautious about, because when you go into these into the museums, even when you read articles about it, and we won't get into one tonight, but when you read articles about our history, the context, the narrative is often skewed in a manner that is not good for our people. It creates this perspective that integration was a good thing. MLK came and did this wonderful thing for his people, and that is absolutely not the case. And again, that is a direct result of Christianity, because in Christianity, God has to love everybody, and well, God loves everybody, and therefore all Christians have to love everybody, at least all black Christians. Because Esau does not care. Esau loves his people, and he is absolutely fine with that. Now he's going to give you lip service and tell you that there shouldn't be any hate, and we should love everybody, and so on and so forth. But when it comes down to how he conducts himself, he is going to absolutely love his people, and we should as well. But that's not what we do when we align ourselves with Christianity. We have to love everyone, even the oppressor who treats us the absolute worst and unalives us and oppresses us and keeps us from building up our communities, breaks down our families, keeps our brothers in a position where they cannot have an authoritative position in their families, break down the home, uh, you know, single parent, single mother homes that are raising generations at this point. These are all the things that happen when we decide to love, that we have to love everybody because of Christianity. All right. So those always are things to keep in perspective. The information is great. What's often great. What's so interesting is the narrative that goes along with it. All right. Now we're gonna get into a little bit deeper. So some of you all may or may not be aware of the area that the History Museum is in Richmond. All right. It's called Jackson Ward. Now, whether you're familiar or not, if I told you we were going to Jackson Ward in Richmond, would you be concerned or not? Typically, even if you don't know, if I just told you we were going to hang out in Jackson Ward, but anybody who might have a connotation about where we might be going, who might have a perspective, what kind of area might you assume we're going to? Anybody want to chime in? Okay. All right. I give you that. All right. Brother Stephen Ballmer said Confederate area. Because Jackson, right? I get exactly where you're going. No sweat. All right. Maria said the Hood Ward. Okay. Anybody else? Anybody else? Perspective or no perspective? What might you think? Obviously, if you have perspective, give that. If you don't, that's fine. Let's see. Going back to what you all were saying about us being segregated, obviously there's another reason why we should be segregated. In addition to Zephaniah 2 and 1 telling us to gather ourselves together, right? What's another perspective? Uh, Most High told us to be separated. He told us to be a holy people, right? We go to Deuteronomy 14 and 2. It says, "For thou art an holy people unto the Most High thy power. And the Most High hath chosen thee to be a peculiar people unto himself above all the nations upon the earth." That's where we're supposed to be. We're supposed to be separate. We're supposed to be collectively together and separate away from these other nations. That's why it's also important. And that's why one of our best times in this country was that time period because we had to be that way. We were forced to be that way. So we were closer to how the Most High wanted us to conduct ourselves then than we are now. Even though in both time periods, the bulk of us, the vast majority of us, were not following the law, but we were still closer to who and how we should have been back then. All right. That's why it says most places ending in court or ward are projects. She's absolutely right. She's absolutely right. And for perspective, Jackson Ward is where this museum is located, and historically, that I shouldn't say historically. Growing up and living in the area, it was always the hood. That's how it was a project, and that's what it is now. Part of it, the Jackson Ward project, right? And it's tough. It's rough out there, just like it's rough in every other hood, every other project, every other ghetto across the nation where our people are predominantly, living. But what's interesting is Jackson Ward, and we're gonna get into it, was once basically a Black Wall Street in Richmond. It was basically a Black Wall Street in Richmond. So as you all have said it, once we integrated, once MLK came and had his nightmare, once we were no longer forced to be together, and we had the quote unquote option of going out and going into other places with this oppressor, and now we can eat sandwiches and potato salad with raisins in it, and uh, uh, you know uh, chicken salad with almonds, and I don't know kind of stuff they be eating. But now we can do that. It turned into, well, that's what we want to do now. We're gonna go over there for that. And once that happened, our communities were left as far as the resources, as far as the circulation of our dollars went. And we gave our resources to the oppressor. You take that, you couple that with Christianity, which is what got us there in the first place. You couple that with the so-called war on drugs, which was an absolute plot to destroy. our communities, and then Jackson Ward went from being Black Wall Street to the projects. All right, let's see. All right, so with that one, we're gonna get into this particular article. All right, and even within this article, which again has good information, y'all gonna see that the narrative in this stuff. We have to be very, very critical of the narrative of a lot of stuff that we read. The history can be factual. The narrative is stuff that it's going to be suspect often because the ISUPK is the only place where you're going to get the context for the history. That's the only place where the context of the Bible is taught. This is the only place that the context of the Bible is taught, the context of the precepts are taught, and it's also the only place where you're going to get the context, the proper context of this history. And a lot of these things are even written by us. I don't know if this particular article is, but a lot of these narratives are written by Black people. Again, when we were in the museum, you know, Captain Officer Dr. Shah is asking the curator questions about, because that building had, and I'm not gonna go too far into it, 'cause I'm probably gonna do a class on that also, but that building was used for various things over the years. It was a barracks at one point, it was a school at one point, several different schools. I think it was a middle school, elementary school, and a high school. So there were all these different things that this building was used for in the community. And then sometime, I think it was in 81, I think she said, there was a fire there that destroyed the whole building. It didn't burn it down, but it destroyed it where it couldn't be used. And Kat is asking her questions about, well, how did that happen? Because obviously we have a history of, uh, you know, fires breaking out in our communities and in our important places in our community. Um, and she, you know, well be with the sister, but she not only did she not, since she didn't know the answer, you could tell she was reluctant to kind of go down that road. And that road being to speak on the oppression, the historical oppression of our people in this country. That was not something that she wanted to entertain. Um, and that's why we have to be critical. We have to be objectively critical with the narrative that comes out of a lot of this stuff. Because, again, the facts can be what they are, but the narrative behind it, everybody wants to love everybody because of Christianity, especially so-called Blacks, Hispanics, and Latinos, Blacks, Latinos, and Native Americans. They want us to love everybody because we're the ones who are catching all the hell. We are the ones who are oppressed on a daily basis. And so they want us to love everyone when they don't love anyone but themselves and their people. All right. Okay, so we're going to get into this. Y'all are not going to be able to see it again. This is one of those articles that, I'm going to share it, but y'all not going to be able to see it. Y'all not going to be able to read it. I think the word's going to be way too small. But this is, and one more thing before I say this, before I open this up. This talks about, the title of the article is Urban Entrepreneurs, the Origins of Black Business Districts in Durham, Richmond, and Washington, D.C. So, and again, a lot of the narrative, I think, is not even I think, a lot of the narrative for this article is about the importance of economics and entrepreneurship and all that good stuff. And that's where you're going to see some of these statements don't exactly make sense. This is not the stance of ISUPK. Listen, we don't need economics necessarily. We don't need to focus on economics as a people. We need to focus on the Most High's laws. The Most High has laws about economics. So if we were to focus on his laws and come back to his laws and follow the law, statutes, and commandments, then we don't have to worry about, oh, we have to do this and we have to be entrepreneurial and circulate the black dollar, and we don't have to do that. That's what the law, statutes, and commandments are for. That's what the Most High instructed us to do, among other things. It's not just about economics. This article is about economics. Okay, but I just want to be clear that is not the stance of the school specifically. All right. See, that's way too small. But we're gonna get into it. It says Jackson World was a place for African Americans and a place to be for African Americans in post-bellum Richmond, Virginia, on Second Street, or the Deuce, as it's known to residents. Out of towners filled shops during the day, while music and jazz clubs filled the air at night. Now, this is why. Listen, when we talk about the kingdom of heaven, when we talk about being in rulership, when we talk about the when we talk about the prophecies um, of the kingdom of heaven, when we talk about these other nations going into captivity, when we talk about being above all nations, again, uh, I'm going to read it again. This is Deuteronomy 14 and 2. For thou art an holy people unto the Most High thy power, and the Most High has chosen thee to be a peculiar people unto himself above all the nations that are upon the earth. When we talk about that, when we talk about having salvation, and salvation is of the Jews, it's only for the 12 tribes of Israel. Who can tell me what that means? Salvation. What does that word mean? Who can tell me what it means to have salvation? All right. Sister River Officer Yagadar hand. Safe from danger. Absolutely. She's absolutely right. That's what it means. All right. To get salvation means to be safe from danger. Okay. Um, and this is John 4 and 22. This is when Christ was speaking to, I can believe this was a Samaritan woman, right? Um, yes, this was a Samaritan woman. Um, Christ was speaking to her. She said, Salaki, this is First John 4 and 22. Christ said, ye worship, ye know not what. We know what we worship, for salvation is of the Jews. Salvation, being safe from danger, having the Most High protect, uh, uh, giving the getting the Most High's protection from danger is only for the 12 tribes of Israel. Because right now, not only because we are His people, but the reality is right now we're the only people who need to be protected. All these other nations are pretty safe, especially in America. These other nations are absolutely safe here. There was in the at the museum. There was a flag. It looked like the American flag, right? This thing had to be probably 10 to 15 feet high. It was hanging on the wall, and a local artist had done this, right? But when you look closer, it was quilt type material, and the white stripes on the flag were just a white, kind of off white material. It wasn't completely white. And the curious said that she did that on purpose because America's history is absolutely not pure white, right? It's dirty. So it was an off white, but then all of the red was a combination of a red material. And she said the artist felt like it kind of resembled blood, And then it was a combination of those squares and squares of Black, Latino, Native Indian, our people, all the people who had been unalived by police officers. The thing had to be, again, 10 to 12 feet, 10 to 15 feet tall. The curator said, I think it was 78 pictures and a narrative about what happened. Now, of course, Sandra Bland was there. Of course, I believe Philando Castile was there. Freddie Gray, George Floyd, all of the ones that you're very familiar with because they made the news. But there were so many others. Again, there were 78 of them that were listed on this, in this piece of art that looked like the American flag, all tinted red appropriately. And as the curator was talking about it, she said that it was initially a lot longer than that. And she asked the artist, well, why'd you cut it off? She said, because it was too heartbreaking. She couldn't take it because there were so many names, so many of our people unalive by this wicked oppressor. I believe she said she had enough to make another one if she wanted to. This is why we need safety. This is why we need salvation from this oppression. All right. But that's where I was going. It's a lot. That's what salvation looks like. That's what the kingdom of heaven looks like. That's what it will look like. It'll be us free to move, not worried about potentially being unalive because you went in your pocket to pull out your wallet. Not being unalive because you're a 12-year-old boy playing a part. Not being unalive just because you're sitting in your living room eating some ice cream like Botham John. Not worrying about being unalive because you're on a jog in the morning. I forgot the brother's name. There's so many of them. Ahmaud Arbery. Not being unalive. That's what salvation is. And like I said, it said Jackson Ward or 2nd Street. It said it was known, residents and out-of-towners filled shops during the day while music from jazz clubs filled the air at night. This was predominantly Black area in Richmond. All right. Pull this back up so y'all can see it. So from the late 19th century to the mid 20th century, a similar snapshot could be taken in Durham, North Carolina, and Washington, D.C. As racial segregation and terrorism plagued the South, Black business districts in these cities emerged as refuges where African Americans could shop or start businesses of their own. They also served as repositories for much needed capital of Black entrepreneurs and homeowners. These are the things that we could do, that we did shortly after, as Officer Yagadar said, right after slavery was so-called ended, right? We began to build our communities because we had to, but we did it so well. We did it so well. We began to have our communities where we looked out for each other so we could start businesses knowing that we would then be the customers of those businesses. So Officer Yagadar, if he made shirts, I need a shirt, I'm gonna go to Officer Yagadar. Right? Trooper Carlson Park he may be able to build a house. Hey, listen, maybe I already got a house, but guess what? Maybe I want to do an add-on. Maybe I need something fixed. Maybe I need. Hey, listen, Sister Riot on the low, she can cook. So that back then, hey, maybe we should have had a restaurant, knowing in the community. So hey, look, it's dinner time. Her place is packed. This is what the kingdom of heaven will look like. These are the communities that sprang up, not only in Richmond, not only in Tulsa, Oklahoma, as everybody everybody's familiar with that one. Not only there, Durham, North Carolina, Washington, D.C., all across the nation. We were setting up these communities and being to ourselves as the Most High commanded us to do. Let's keep going. Like, I'm just gonna read it. I'm not gonna keep pulling up because I don't think. Well, y'all let me know if y'all can read it. Give me a 1. If y'all can't, give me a 2, and then I'll just read it. All right. Um, um, it says black business districts thrived until the latter half of the 20th century. The latter half of the 20th century is basically anytime after about the 1950s. And why? Because of integration. But listen to how, let me see. Okay, I think it does go into it. It says black business districts thrived until the latter half of the 20th century when desegregation made them less vital to African American consumers. Once we did not need to do business with each other because of integration, then we stopped. Then we stopped. Now it's going to go into why we stopped. Because then what we're going to find is a lot of our more well-to-do brothers and sisters, they decided that they wanted to go spend their money with the oppressor. Because during the heyday of black business districts, entrepreneurs were both constrained and protected, says William Darity Jr. He's an economist at the University of North Carolina at Chapel Hill. So why would he reference them as constrained and protected? These are districts that are solely for black businesses. He describes them as constrained and protected. And this is one of the first pieces where, again, you got to be skeptical with some of this stuff. Why would he describe it? Who can give me a perspective on why he would say that the businesses were constrained? Matter of fact, let's look that up first, just to make sure we all know what we're talking about. All right, so constrain means to force by imposed structure, restriction, or limitation. So why would he describe a business as constrained because it was in a black community? Coco in the building, Shalom says. Who wants to give it a shot? Why might somebody describe a business in a predominantly black community as constrained? All right, who wants to give it a shot now? All right, y'all must be sleeping in here. No sweat. We're gonna go on. The reason why, the reason why he described it as constrained goes on. He says they were constrained in the sense that, to a large extent, Black entrepreneurs would have to provide their services to other members of the black community. Give off Siagadai. Exactly. Lack of white influences, businesses, and schools, particularly customers, is what he was talking about. Meaning, since because of segregation, well, they aren't able, quote unquote, to sell to the oppressor, so they're constrained in how much business they can do. Now, why is that silly? They won't come into our businesses anyway. Not enough to move the needle, not enough to make an impact. This is not something that they were like. This gives a connotation, almost the idea that the oppressor wanted to come to our community but couldn't, or we wanted the oppressor's dollars, but this law segregation is why we couldn't get them. That's not true. They wanted nothing to do with our businesses. They wanted nothing to do with us other than to get our resources. And we're gonna get into that. So that's one of the parts where I'm like, gotta be careful when you read this stuff. All right. But now he is right on the second point. He says, but they were protected in the sense that they were not confronted with significant competition from non-black businesses. We didn't have to worry about our people going over to other nations to buy any goods, to get any services, to do anything. We didn't have to worry about that until integration. Once integration happened, then our communities, our people just left the businesses and go again. We went to give all of our resources to the other nations. But when segregation was a thing, that's how we were able to build Black Wall Street. That's how we were able to build Jackson Ward and Durham, North Carolina, and Washington, D.C., and Tulsa, Oklahoma, and Harlem. We were able to build those communities because our people weren't able to take the resources and give them away. All right. So in that sense, he's actually correct. That brought about a certain amount of protection for our people and our businesses. And obviously, when you have a community that is collected together, you have businesses that are collected together, you have relationships and I know you and I know the brother around the corner that's got a shop and I know we all know each other. We're all participating in our community together. That brings about a certain strength because we are drawn together at that point. We're gathered together, as the scriptures say. All right. Because the seeds of black commerce were that is separate. Seeds of black commerce were germinated as far back as the 17th century, and well before places like Jackson Ward reached their zenith. It says 90% of blacks in the United States were legally property of other folks. So to the extent that they could engage in entrepreneurial activity depending upon the discretion of their owners. Yet, slaves found a way to participate in the economy. How would a slave find a way to participate in the economy? Who has a guess on that? Who has a guess on how, other than obviously providing labor, free labor? Other than that, who has a perspective on just a guess? You don't even have to know, just a guess on what we might have been doing even while we were enslaved. What might we have been doing to participate in some form of economy? Give y'all a couple seconds. I don't want to wake nobody. I think y'all sleeping here tonight. That's cool. I ain't gonna stop. We're gonna keep going. Like anybody got a guess? No sweat. It says, for example, some plantation slaves who grew their own food were allowed to barter and sell their surplus produce. Rice, tobacco, and other crops changed hands with other slaves, and slave owners and customers in neighboring plantations and towns. So that's always something that we were doing. Salaki says, no sweat. The question was, how were we participating? Because it said, the article said, even when we were slaves, we found a way to participate in the economy. The question was, how would we do that, even though we were slaves? Obviously, just not our free labor that this entire nation was taking advantage of. But what it was saying is that we were, even then when we were enslaved, depending on uh, the specifics of the plantation, some of us were allowed to grow our own food. And what we would do is grow our own food, and then obviously others of us have skills. We were bartering with each other even then, even when we were enslaved. This is something that really is natural to us. It's natural to Israel. Because again, this is what the Most High instructed us to do. This is something that we were doing, uh, um, having a communication with each other, not communication, having commerce with each other was something that we were doing even when we were enslaved. Sister Coco says, proving input, giving ideas. Give me a little bit more on that, sister. I want to make sure I understand what you're saying. All right. But yeah, that was something that we were doing even then, right? And that was before we even had our so-called freedom, right? It says in the latter case, says when they were able to actually sell to other customers and things of that nature, like again when we were growing our own food, if we had that option, we would then sell it. Now most of it said the profits would typically went to the slave owner, but still, that's something that we naturally were doing. It says slaves traded other products as well, including poultry, prepared foods, herbal medicines, and homemade goods. Listen, prepared foods. We listen. I don't know this for a fact, all right? But the selling of dinner plates, having a dinner sale, dinner plate sale, that's us. That's what we do. That's what we do. I don't know if I've ever seen another nation as effective as our people do. Put it out there that there's somebody selling plates and everybody comes throughout the community. Oh boy, look like we got an old hater in here. Let's see. You have a question or something, Casimir. However you pronounce your name, Casimir Kennedy. You got something to say or ask? Not even say, because you're already on some nonsense. I'm gonna give you one more shot, brother, and you about to be shut down. Yeah, you about to be shut down. That's right. Look at this nonsense. You about to be gone. And for the record, yes, Christ is black. He's not demonic. I'm trying to give you one more chance, brother. Sir. I don't call you brother. Ah, yeah, there you go. And boom. Try to give you a chance. All right, let's keep going. Sister says it's like when one of us couldn't supply our needs, we had no choice but to go to the man. Exactly. Exactly. Whereas back then, if one of us couldn't supply our need, and I'm assuming when you say the man, you mean our oppressor, I think is what you're saying. But back then, if anybody needed anything in the community, then we banded together. We banded together and made sure that other folks in the community had it. Listen, I don't know if y'all remember this. Listen, borrow a cup of sugar, borrow whatever. That was something that we used to do. We don't do that no more. By and large, we don't do that as a culture anymore. Matter of fact, we so worried about how either somebody else in the community is going to see us, or we end up looking down on the brother and sister that maybe need something nowadays. That's what we do because our community is so destroyed. But back then, we looked out for each other because we knew we had a common enemy. We absolutely knew that we had a common enemy. But because we don't know that now, thanks to Christianity, because God loves everybody, and we have to forgive the oppressor. We can't, nobody, you can't despise anyone, even for their actions. You have to forgive them no matter what. You can have someone unalive your child, unalive your family member, go into a church and unalive everybody there, and then because of Christianity, then you're forced to stand up and say, "No, I forgive them." We do not look out for our community the way we used to. Absolutely not. Let's see. Oh, no sweat, sir. Providing input on crop. Okay, yeah, absolutely right. Absolutely right. Get us this name. Provide input on cropping. Exactly. We used to listen. Growing agriculture was our culture. We had an agricultural society. Everything was built on farming. A lot of the laws are built on farming and what you can, how much you can harvest and getting a fair day's work, for fair pay and all that good stuff. It was about agriculture. So even when we were enslaved, when we were growing things, then that's something that we can now barter with. If your crops aren't coming up maybe the way they should, hey, maybe try this, maybe try that. Whereas now we're in this quote unquote capitalistic society, and hey, when you ain't coming up, sorry, bro, you got to pull yourself up by your own bootstraps and all that nonsense that we got from this oppression. All of that nonsense that we got from this oppression. All right, let's keep going. Because entrepreneurial activity also originated from slaves with marginal authority at white-owned plantations. And see, this is also interesting. It says white-owned plantations and businesses. Again, these are little subtle things. What do you mean a white-owned plantation? There's no such thing as it. That's the only one. It's the only one. There was no white-owned anything. I mean, no plantation that was owned by anybody other than whites. What are you talking about? There you go. Sister Nazam in the building. Shalom says she says selling clothes and washing clothes for other oppressors at a cheaper rate. Let me make sure I understand what you're talking about, sis. Give me a little bit more. Give me a little bit more. I think I get where you're going, but I want to make sure I got a little bit more. But yeah, they're talking about white-owned plantations. There were no black-owned plantations. What are you talking about? This is nonsense, right? So it says often using the freedom that came from managing their owners' enterprises, talking about the businesses. Slave entrepreneurs made money by secretly selling their skills and services to their owners' goods and or their owners' goods to customers. So what they would do sometimes, if the oppressor had a business and they allowed um, the brother or sister to run it and to manage it, then we being smart as we are, we being the salt of the earth, then we would then um, sell our skills, some of our services. I'm not sure if this is where you were going, Sister Design, but maybe we would sew some clothes together and sell them in that store directly, right? That was something that happened. It says in some instances, owners gave their approval for such business activities as long as the slave managers continued to produce profits. Meaning, listen, you want to make some money on the side? That's fine because we were already making money for the slave owner anyway. Now, I'm sure there were plenty of situations where that was not okay. No sweat, sis. No sweat. All right. It's exactly what that is. Yes, we would do those type of things. This is how we were because we are an industrious people. It's what we do. It's what we do. If left alone and not the subject not under the subjugation of oppression, then we thrive. We thrive when we're left alone and we are alone with each other. That's what we naturally do. All right. Um, Says some it was common for slaveholders to profit from hiring out their laborers. We all know this. Um, Says some slaves recognized their value on the open market and asked to negotiate the terms of their self-employment. Now, I don't like how some of this is phrased, but I get what they're trying to say. Their self-employment. I mean, all right, I guess. But again, these so-called profits, this money is typically going to the slave owners. I'm not sure. Again, it's the subtleties. It's the subtleties, right? Um, but again, it says occasionally they went a step further and asked for permission to run a business. Owners usually acquiesced when they got a cut of the take, of course, right? But this is just showing our ability to be entrepreneurial, all right? Which then led to our communities. Um, Again, Black Wall Street, Jackson Board, so on and so forth. Now, it says, what happened to all of this income? So think about it. We're talking about how industrial, um, even when we were enslaved, how much we were able to make, barter and have an economy, right? And then of course, right after slavery, up until integration, we did wonderful, right? So what happens is what happened to all of this income? Slaves used it to purchase land and other assets. I don't know about that. I think that's another one. I think what he means is after after slavery was over, because slaves couldn't own land. Okay, because even as Maryland, Virginia, North Carolina, and other southern states imposed new legal restraints on blacks during the 18th and early 19th century. Right, this is after. Get that right? Yes, this is after um, slavery. African Americans managed to retain some property rights. Because during this period, some blacks accumulated enough wealth to buy freedom for themselves and their families. Now we do know people bought their own freedom, so on and so forth. I don't think it had nothing to do with no land ownership, um, but we do know that that was a thing. All right, says free blacks and those born outside of slavery eagerly continued the tradition of entrepreneurship. They found a variety of niches where their skills were valued by whites. Of course, who can tell me why our skills were so valued by whites? It goes on, it says, including catering and other food services, personal services such as tailoring and hair care. Listen, hair care is something that really began with us. Them beauty supply stores, those were our efforts that started that. And let's think about it. They only set, oh, Officer Quishah in the building. Shalom, brother. Shalom, Shalom, Shalom. Think about these beauty supply stores, right? Who's the primary? When you walk in, you don't even have to see a customer in there. You can just walk in and see the product and know who the primary clientele is. It's us. It's absolutely us. That is a huge industry that we began. Absolutely right. Get that sister a hand because we did everything for them. That's why we had all of these skills. It says they found a variety of niches where their skills were valued by whites. Of course, because we did everything, which is why soon right after slavery we were able to create and build all these communities because all of the hard work that needed to be done in order to build a community We have been doing it for centuries. We have been doing it for centuries for this oppressive nation. And as soon as we got half a chance, we said, no problem, we will do it for ourselves. Absolutely right. Give Stephen Baldwin a hand. Matter of fact, was that Matthew 5 and 13, I believe. We're going to pull that real quick. I believe that's it. Yes, Matthew 5 and 13 says, yea, ye are the salt of the earth. And this is Christ speaking. He's absolutely right. All right. But if the salt have lost its savor, wherewith shall it be salted? And this is the back end of what happened. We lost our flavor because we do not follow the law, statutes, and commandments that the Most High gave us. Absolutely right. We are the stars of the earth. We have flavor. No one else does. Absolutely right. Absolutely right. And we lost our flavor with the Most High, but we still are. I mean, come on. We are the most imitated people in this on the planet. We are the most imitated people on the planet. Even just watching regular TV, you can see all of our culture, all of our swag, all of our, yeah, all of that flavor. Just it just automatically. Listen, all of these nations soak it up. With our primary oppressor being the most, he soaks up the most of it because he has absolutely no culture. Absolutely no culture. Mr. Coco just said black. Black. He just said black. Damn right. It's just Yagadars Rib says we watched them, fed them, feed their kids, watch their kids. We did it all. Exactly. Exactly. We did absolutely everything. I saw something one time. Um, who was it? Not that I agree with most of what this brother says. I think it was Umar Johnson. He said, and of course I don't agree with half of nothing he says, but he was right in this point. He said, how did he phrase it? He said the white woman lost the most after slavery was over. He said the white woman lost the most after slavery was over because when slavery was going on, she really didn't have to do anything. She didn't even have to nurse her own children because she got our sisters to do it. She had to do nothing. Like the sister said, she didn't have to wash her children. She didn't have to feed them. She didn't have to watch her kids. She had to feed her kids. She didn't have to cook. She had to do nothing. And then once slavery's over, oh now you now look here, she saw you gonna work. You gonna work. Absolutely right. Give the sister a hand. Since we still have flavor, they just to them, absolutely, they just now steal it and claim it as theirs. Exactly. They claim it as theirs. They claim all of our um, again, all of our swag, our music, our style, our everything. They take it of their own. I saw something that listen, Esau loves some Mexican food. Esau loves Issachar food. Loves it. I saw something where they were talking about simple tacos. And this Edomite was like, that's not Mexican food. That's American. What? But this is what happens. When she said they steal it and claim it as their own, she is absolutely right. This same Edomite doesn't want any immigrants from Mexico. He don't want Issachar to come over here at all. This same Edomite will have a factory that he has nothing but Issachar working in, quote unquote undocumented. He'll love him for that. Oh, they can come over and give me some of this cheap labor. Oh, but you want what? You want to actually move here and be here legally? Nah, we ain't doing that. And them tacos, yeah, that ain't even yours no more. Those are ours too. Listen, this oppressor is a wicked bastard. Give Sisters Nazama a hand. They even try to look like us. They tend to try to look like us. Absolutely right. Not only tan, they will go get these what is it, collagen injections and Botox and tanning and listen, hairstyles. Some of them walk around with braids. They we are the most um, loved and hated nation on the planet. They love everything about us and despise everything about us at the same time. Right, right. Butt injections, exactly, exactly, exactly. Some of us, I mean, I'm dating myself a little bit, but who anybody that's familiar with Sir Mix-a-Lot back in I think it was the '90s. Baby got back, and he had the first the video started. It was two Edomites talking about how big the sister, butt was, and so on and so forth, and how disgusting it was. And fast forward, everybody wants to look like our sister. Everybody wants to look like our sisters. You have these Edomite celebrities. Listen, some of them look horrible. They look like Frankenstein or something like that, trying to look like us. Trying to look absolutely, sis. Trying to look like us. Trying to look like our beautiful sisters. Terrible. They look horrible. Right. Right. And this goes to another point. She says, look at Kim K. She stole our looks and our men. And this goes to another point. This goes to another point. That's not, that's our problem. That's the brother's problem. Because we don't have enough love for our sisters. We don't have enough love to understand that all these other nations are working so hard to look like our sisters. So why are you going to these other nations, brother? Especially with Israel, you can have, listen, brother, if you have anything that's your particular type, you can find it in Israel. You could. We were talking about this thing last class. We are as a speckled bird. You can find anything that you are attracted to, as far as skin tone, height, body type, anything you want. A sister can listen. There's some sister out there. There's absolutely a sister out there for you that will be exactly what you want. There you go, sister Nazar said again. The 12 flavors, absolutely right. But we'll do because we are so destroyed as a people and we don't have any love for ourselves and our people. We will go to go to Kim K. We'll go to Edomite. We'll go to some Moabite. We'll go to some of everything except our people. Yes, sister. She said we basking Robin. God, if there's a flavor of ice cream you want, Israel got it. So there's no reason to go over there for that other stuff. You going to get soy ice cream and all this nonsense. Nah, absolutely. All right. Um, where were we? Like, let me see. Uh, this goes in. Oh, lucky. This goes into it a little bit more, right? Um, no, that's not where I was. It's like I lost my place. Y'all bear with me for a second. Here it is. Now here we go. Here's some more nonsense in this article, right? It said they found a variety of niches that were found a variety of niches where their skills were valued by whites, including catering, The food services, personal services such as tailoring and hair care, um, small scale manufacturing. We did some of everything. Then it says a few blacks managed to build substantial enterprises, particularly those that serve both whites and blacks and entered professions like law and dentistry. So hold on. This is where this nonsense is. So you gonna tell me that there were some very successful black businesses because, in large part, because they catered to white people? I need to know what business that was. I need to know what business that was. I don't think it existed. And even if it did, it doesn't now. Let's say there was one or two. What did it get them? What did it gain them? How did it help? Absolutely nothing. None of these businesses, they're gonna, all of these again, Black Wall Street, Jacksonville, Durham, North Carolina, all of them were flooded with black businesses, of which almost none of them exist now. And you talking about entering professions like law and dentistry? I'm sorry, I find it hard pressed to believe that any Edomite was going to a black lawyer or a black dentist. I just, some of this stuff, I think the facts are there, but the narrative is nonsense oftentimes. All right. So it's feeling threatened. Protectionist whites barred blacks from certain occupations. For instance, in 1836, Washington D.C. made it illegal for blacks or slaves to sell alcoholic beverages or run other types of businesses for profit. They added the challenge. This added the challenge of collecting debts and obtaining credit that often impeded the growth of black business owners. Again, the narrative is off. No slave was running a business for profit. You're not a slave at that point. You're not a slave at that point. And if you're managing it for the slave owner, then he's the one that's going to okay you selling whatever. So some of this stuff is nuts. Let me skip to where I want it. Now here it is. So this is talking about antebellum, meaning after slavery, right? It says in an effort to address the need for credit, wealthy antebellum blacks acted as informal bankers. That's what we did. They collected other people's savings, then used the fund to make loans and discount banknotes. No problem. That's called pooling your resources. That's called, okay, we got a need to for capital, for loans, so people can make open businesses, buy homes, buy land, so on and so forth. Let's pool our resources. Let's come together for the benefit of the community. Those are things that happen. This is the time period that we can say we can make Israelites great again. You take everything that we all the industriousness that we had, and you couple that with the law, statutes, and commandments. Listen, that's the kingdom of heaven. That is the kingdom of heaven. When we are supporting each other and have the Most High's protection. When we're not eating pork, shrimp, crab, and lobster, so our health is a lot better collectively. When we are not allowing the secret to be that cousin Joe touch everybody in the family, so don't make sure you don't leave your babies around him. You know he ain't right. When we're not able to just okay that and look the other way, that's the kingdom of heaven. When you don't have to be concerned about your children in the community, in your community. That's the kingdom of heaven. Slocky. Here we go. There we go. All right. Because African Americans were. Let me stop right there. Who can listen? This article again. I don't even think it's gotten to, but we in this article we've been Afro American, African American, Black, former slaves. We've been all of these terms, right? Deuteronomy 28 and 37. Again, this is how you know we are the true children of Israel. And these are in the section of the curses, which were going to befall the children of Israel if they did not follow the law, statutes, and commandments. It says, and thou shalt become an astonishment, a proverb, and a byword. We have been 4 or 5 different terms in this one article. In this one article, we've been 4 or 5 different terms. Everybody else is just who they are. They white people. Jordan, that's what they were saying. They white. We have a million different descriptions, some of which we can't even say because YouTube is so sensitive. But you can go look up a song, or you can go pull up any song, any rap lyrics. We talked about a couple classes ago the ice cream truck song. You can go find the original song. Oh, they're gonna say the N word all day, and then ride through our community selling it, selling ice cream, playing that same song. Anyway, on sidebar. African Americans were accustomed to pooling their resources. That's what we did. Throughout the 1600s, slaves secretly formed burial societies to pay for funerals. That's what we did. Even then, it's part of our culture to come together. It's part of our culture to support and help and protect each other. But what happened is we aligned ourselves with the suppressor. That's not his culture. His culture is get what you can. Good luck. Pull yourself up by your own bootstraps. I'm gonna look out for me. You look out for you. Buyer beware and all this stuff like that. That's that oppressor's culture. If we go to Proverbs, what is it? Proverbs 3 and 31. Slocky. Proverbs 3 and 31 says, envy not the oppressor and choose none of his ways. That's part of our issue. We don't follow the law, statutes, and commandments, and we chose his ways. As a whole, we chose to leave our way. We chose to leave our culture, our customs, and go follow his. And as a result, our communities are destroyed. It says later, after, let me see, it says, Slaki, throughout the 1600s, slaves secretly formed various societies to pay for funerals. It says later, mutual aid societies and church-based relief societies use membership fees to offer death benefits, education, and vocational training for youth and other assistance. Think about that community. We have a fund over here. We have a fund over here to help the community, to look out for our people, to offer help when somebody becomes a widow, right? So her man passed away. She needs help. To offer education so we can educate our own people as opposed to being part of this education system, where all you learn about is Esau's history. You learn about Esau's history and slavery. MLK, that's pretty much it. That sums it up pretty well. Imagine the benefit of your children going to a school in your community taught by your people. Absolutely right. Yeah, hence the statement. It's a cliche, but it's true. It's what we did. It takes a village. We supported each other. It's the closest thing we've had since we've been in this country, since we've been in this captivity. That period is the closest thing we've come to really being the people that we're supposed to be, set apart and gathered together. We just weren't following the law, statutes, and commandments. And what our people don't even understand is how well we were doing then as a people. Because again, you know what? I left one of them out. I said slavery and MLK and lynchings and stuff. That's what it's taught. That's basically what it's taught in this oppressive education system. Imagine how well, uh, uh, imagine the perspective, the mentality that our children would have, knowing that these are the communities that were built, even right after slavery. Imagine what our communities would be like now if we were, uh, uh, all of us collectively teaching that we need to look out for each other. You need to choose your people before you choose another nation. That's the opposite of what happens now. What happens now? Brothers say, "Nah, I ain't dealing with no black-owned business. I ain't dealing with no. Nah, I don't like dealing with black-owned business because they might have had an experience that wasn't the best. See, that's why I don't deal with brothers. This is why I don't go to black business. Whatever Verizon phone has dropped 1 million calls, even Verizon. But you don't say I ain't dealing with Esau's business. You've gone to the restaurant, they have messed up your order, but you don't say, see, that's why I don't deal with Esau. It's not what you say. You say that business might be bad. That person might be bad. You had a bad experience. But think about how different it would be if it was us and us was our focus. Think about how beautiful it would be if it was just our people that we wanted to do business with. And then we held each other accountable appropriately. That's what the law, statutes, and commandments are for. It's to provide the protection for our people. Absolutely right. Get that sister hand. Brotherhood is a true weapon. And we all know from the brotherhood class that Officer Yagadar does an amazing job at, that brotherhood is following these laws, statutes, and commandments. Sisterhood is following these laws, statutes, and commandments. Being together, looking out for each other, and loving your neighbor. Matter of fact, Matthew 22 and 39. This is Christ talking. Somebody asked him, what can he do to get into the kingdom of heaven? Well, maybe he said, what was the greatest commandment? So like, which is the great commandment? And which is the greatest commandment in the law? He said, loving the Most High with thy. So like, I'm going to start at verse 37. Jesus said unto him, so like, Yahweh said unto him, thou shalt love the Most High, thy power with all thy heart and all thy soul and all thy mind. Verse 38, this is the first and great commandment. Verse 39, and the second commandment, and the second is to love. I'm gonna get myself together. And the second is like unto it, thou shalt love thy neighbor as thyself. Thou shalt love thy neighbor as thyself. Now, Christianity would teaches that loving thy neighbor is just loving whoever lives next door to you. And because of that, you gotta love everybody. Because anybody can live next door to you, especially since we have integration now. Right? So your neighbor is anybody who's next door, across the street, in your neighborhood, anybody at all. That is not what your neighbor is in this context. All right? How do we know? We go to Leviticus chapter 19 and verse 17 and 18. Verse 17 says, thou shalt not hate thy brother in thine heart, thou shalt in any wise rebuke thy neighbor and not suffer sin upon him. So now we're talking about a brother and a neighbor. Same thing? No, let's go to 18, see what happens. Verse 18, it says, thou shalt not avenge nor bear any grudge against the children of thy people. Who are the children of thy people? The 12 tribes of Israel. You shall not hold any grudges against your people. Don't hate your brother. Don't hate your neighbor, because your people is your neighbor. Again, going back to us being set apart and gathered together. Going back to us having a community that's just us. It's supposed to be your neighbor's supposed to be, meaning the person that lived next door to you is supposed to be your brother. It's supposed to be your people, because we're supposed to be collectively together. It says, but thou shalt love thy neighbor as thyself. I am the Most High. That is not talking about somebody who just lives around you. It's talking about your people. If you are so-called Black, Hispanic, or Native American, then you are brothers. We are family. That is what brotherhood and sisterhood is about. All right. I'm not going too far. I'm messing around, step on Officer Yagadon's toe. I'm not trying to do that. Let's see. Salakia, is world a society of people, our people? Khan, yes. World is an age or a society. So when it says, I'm not gonna have enough time for the entire breakdown, but I think I get where you're going. If you look up John 3:16, which is one of the most butchered and misunderstood scriptures in the world. It says, "For God so loved the world, the Most High, for the Most High so loved the world that He gave His only begotten Son, that whosoever believeth in Him should not perish but have everlasting life." When you, obviously y'all can talk like the water, bro. The water. When you hear that world, that is not talking about the whole earth. That is not talking about the whole planet. There are scriptures. I have. I don't have time for the whole breakdown. We only got 10 minutes left. But Christ also said, because this is what they say. Well, Christ said, God so loved the world. God also said He prays not for the world. Christ also said that. So what does that mean? Right? Salakia. Bear with me. This is the quick version. All right. I'm gonna jump to the one that wraps it up for you if I can get there. Salakia. There it is. You go to Isaiah 45:17. It says, but Israel shall be saved in the Most High with an everlasting salvation. Ye shall not be ashamed nor confounded, world without end. This is talking about that world is a society of people, and it's the society of Israel. That's who the Most High gave His only begotten Son for our safety, for our salvation. You're absolutely right, sis, when you ask that question. And it goes back to what we were talking about before in the class. Salvation is about safety. I believe it was Captain Kataza gave this analogy. And this is what brothers and sisters in Israel who are not in the truth, and understand, if you are not in ISUPK, you are not in the truth. All right. This is one. Oh, no sweat, sis. No sweat. He gave an analogy. He said, if let's say you committed a crime, right? Let's say you committed a crime, and nope, I'm not gonna take it off of y'all. Let's say I committed a crime, right? And I've been found guilty, and right before punishment comes down, right before punishment comes down, another brother comes in and says, "That's not true. I did it. It's all my fault. Y'all put that on me," right? And then he takes the entire punishment, gets locked up, and now he's sitting in jail, right? He took all of it on himself. And I looked at the brother and said, "I appreciate that, man." And I went out and did the exact same thing. How am I expressing how I feel about him getting me out of safety? Because getting me out of danger. Because to have him step up and take all of it on for me, all of the punishment that comes along with it, that got me out of the danger. That provided safety for me. And if I went out and did the same crime, that just completely disrespected everything he did. Would anybody describe my? Would anybody say that I loved him? No, I think most people would say, "Nah, you pretty much hate that brother. He did that for you, and you still went out and did the same thing. You don't care about him at all." That's how we are when we treat Christ's sacrifice to get us out of danger and provide salvation for us. That's what we do. That's exactly what we do. Absolutely right, sis. Sis said love, no love. Love is an action word, exactly. It requires us to do a thing. Also, Yagadar, the Psalms 90 and 2, before the mountains were brought forth, or ever, thank you, the water, or ever thou hast formed the earth and the world, I believe. Isn't that a plural? Let me make sure I look it up, because I think it's plural. No, that one, okay, Salaki. I must be thinking about a different verse. Uh, the earth and the world, even from everlasting to everlasting, thou art God. Salaki. But even this shows that there's a difference between the earth and the world. Those are two different things. There's other scriptures in the Bible. I don't have all my notes in front of me, Salaki. But where it talks about worlds with an S, there's more than one world. There's more than one society. We always, you got the third world, you got the first world, you got sea world, you got all type of worlds. You hear people say, "I don't know what that's like. I don't live in that world." That's It's not the everybody on the planet, sis. You are absolutely right when you ask that question. It is a society of people. It's an age or society, and that particular scripture was talking about Israel. This is obviously Yagadar be on it. Boy. This what I'm talking about when I say he said, "Listen, brotherhood is an absolute weapon, and he is helping me right now through what." Hebrews 11 and 3. Through faith, we understand that the worlds, with an S, were framed by the word of the Most High, so that things which are seen were not made of things which do appear. Worlds. There's more than one world. All right. Sister Coco said, what are we saying la ah to, sis? I'm not sure what I asked. I'm sorry, it's a lot. Let me know what you say la ah to. All right. Let me see. Time. A couple more minutes. Couple more minutes. All right. Let me get back to this real quick. Um, Talked about pooling the resources, so on and so forth. There was a wanted to get to something real quick before the end of class. So I'll probably go back. So that's not what I want. Okay, here we go. So the article goes on to talk about all the different businesses and communities that were built. It talks about different time periods, all before integration. All right, and it talks about how we pulled our resources. There were banks. There were all type of industries. There were blacksmith. There was construction. There was I think there was even printing. Yeah, there were printing services. There was jewelry. It was all this stuff. We had numerous societies, more than one society where or a community where all we had to do was deal with each other and we didn't need for anything. Okay. It says eventually though, black business districts lost working class, and this says lost working class blacks. And what this means, to translate that for you, poor people is what he's talking about. And you're going to see that in a couple more sentences, right? Working class blacks who became fed up with repressive Jim Crow laws and moved north where social conditions seemed better uh, and factory jobs were abundant. This is his analysis, right? It says, but middle and upper class blacks had no reason to leave the business districts where they had set down roots. They felt somewhat sheltered from the racial tensions of the South, especially those who were in good graces of the white establishment and had their financial backing. Okay, so this is what this means. Middle to upper class black folks were doing better because they had the backing of white folks. That's what this is saying. All right. Oh, absolutely right. Absolutely right. Yes. Yes. If you allow somebody else, to take that charge and then disrespect everything they did, that is absolutely not love. Absolutely right. Get a sister a hand. All right. Um. Then it says by the 1950s and 1960s, however, black business districts began to decline for other reasons. So at first it said, well, they were losing because people were moving. Now it says in the 50s and the 60s, they declined for another reason. Historians believe that the desegregation and social progress of blacks created a new economic reality for these districts. Desegregation and so-called social progress, which means integration, created a new reality for these districts. It says as black consumers ventured into the white business community, black business districts faced a new competition. Civil Rights Act of 1964 didn't make all public accommodations open overnight, but over time, blacks had a much greater reach of potential service providers. The way this is worded is amazing. It says, over time, blacks had a much greater reach of potential service providers. What that means is they were able to go to white business. And once they did that, these black communities, these black businesses started to die. And once that happens, you couple that with the war on drugs, heroin, Vietnam, and all the welfare, Planned Parenthood. You couple it with all of that, and then you can have Jackson Ward, which was basically Black Wall Street for Richmond, turn into the hood and the projects 30 years later. All right. And with that, we're going to read the security announcements real quick. If there are no other questions, all right. And also, listen, I'm gonna probably be doing a series right about now about particularly the Reconstruction era, which is again that right after the Civil War to about the early 1900s, because there were a this is talking about how there were so many black businesses. What I want to get into now, and we'll probably be talking about for the next couple of weeks or so, is some specifics of black business, so that we can have some perspective on everything that was lost, because we don't have those now. But they were absolutely a thing at a time. They were absolutely, again, hair products. There were businesses that were industries that were built on our people providing hair care and hair products. We don't have that anymore. All right. So we're gonna get into that probably over the next few weeks. Again, if anybody has not been to that Black History Museum, it's worth going. There's a ton of information in there. There's some great art in there, and so we definitely encourage y'all to do so. All right. Okay. Security announcements. We got an ISUPK start at 1 West 125th Street, Harlem, New York, under Commanding General Yohana. Rule for new brother or sisters. When a new brother or sister comes into the school, they are off limits for 6 months. They are to be saluted only. They are here to shed themselves of the world. If they need transportation, the teacher will arrange it. After 6 months, if a brother or sister has an interest in a particular person, he or she must get permission from the head to speak to a brother or sister. There's another 6 months in which the brother and sister will court each other. After this 6 month period, the brother and sister will get permission from the head to marry. Tithes, which is a commandment, and you can find in Numbers 18 and 21, Malachi 3, verses 8 through 10, means tenth in the Hebrew, ma'ashara, 10% of every penny of any increase the Most High gives you. You can give it directly to the Treasury Department. You can also go to ISUPK.com and give it directly there through PayPal. All right. You get your records, your emails, all that good stuff. All right. Priest Fund is a free will offering for the priest. It's not mandatory whatsoever amount you would like to give. Upcoming Holy Convocation days. We have the closing. Let me get the actual verbiage. Salaki. We have the closing of the Feast of Tabernacles will be October 7th. I believe that's this Saturday. So be mindful of that. And lastly, if any brother wants to become a trooper, and if any brother wants to become a trooper in school, he needs to start wearing all black. That's black boots, shirt, pants, headband, and war scar. Make sure you get in contact. If you are in Virginia, make sure you get in contact with Officer Urash Ahmad or Captain Nasser Shah. If you are not, make sure you get in contact with the school in your area so you can make sure those priests and prophets know that's something that you want to do. All right. And with that, we're going to give courtesy salute to the brothers, Shalom, Yahweh Hashem, Shabbat to the sisters, Shalom, Yahweh Shemar Lathan, by Hashem Yahweh Shai. Class dismissed. Shalom, Israel.